Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "To you who hear, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. The person who strikes you on one cheek, offer the other one as well. And from the person who takes your cloak, do not withhold even your tunic. Give to everyone who asks of you. And from one who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. For if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to others who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. If you lend money to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners and get back the same amount. But rather, love your enemies and do good to them, and lend, expecting nothing back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Stop judging, and you will not be judged. Stop condemning, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and gifts will be given to you. Good measure, packed together, shaken down, and overflowing will be poured into your lap. For the measure with which you measure will in return be measured out to you." The Gospel of the Lord. This is a difficult gospel reading today. It demands something of us urgently. Be merciful just as your heavenly Father is merciful. And so behold the cross and see what that looks like. Do to others as you would have them do to you. In spite of the way Jesus was mistreated, he continues to pour out his love and mercy on us. In the letter to the Corinthians that we read today, St. Paul speaks of an earthly man, and an earthly man's ethics are according to earthly ways, especially what we see today. Those earthly ways are hate and curses and mistreating and unforgiveness, only to name a few. But we are spiritual beings too. We have a soul, and we go beyond earthly things to the divine. And so we bear the image of our Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ. We look like Jesus. At least we should be looking like Jesus in our actions, in our words. In our first reading today from the book of Samuel, David was being hunted by King Saul. Saul was the king at the time, and he was greatly threatened by David's popularity. And he made numerous attempts on David's life, always failing. On the other hand, David had plenty of opportunity, as we read about this morning, to kill Saul and see to his demise. But David was merciful. He took the words of God himself. Do not harm him. David is saying that. Don't harm him. Don't harm Saul. Do not harm him, for who can lay hands on the Lord's anointed and remain unpunished? In a sense, however, that sentence applies to all of us. Are we not children of God? And are we not by baptism anointed? We're anointed ones. Do no harm, for who can lay hands on the Lord's anointed? So be merciful just as your heavenly Father is merciful. A lot of us can recall Pope John Paul II, Saint John Paul II, who forgave his would-be assassin. That shook the world when that happened. It was a shining example of the indiscriminate love of Christ. Be merciful, just as your heavenly Father is merciful. I met someone a few years ago whose daughter was abused by the next door neighbor. Insufficient evidence allowed the neighbor to be found not guilty. Can you imagine how that father felt and what was going on interiorly? The father of the girl was a good, upstanding Catholic, but he was churning with hate and rage and anger and revenge. And one Sunday at Mass, at the reading of today's gospel, the passage struck him. It struck him hard. He heard Jesus say, "Be merciful, forgive and you will be forgiven." And Jesus also said to him, "Your soul is in danger because you would like to kill your neighbor." That day after Mass, this man went to his next door neighbor and he asked his neighbor for forgiveness. He said, "I've had numerous and murderous intents on you." That's what he said to his neighbor. "I had murderous intent on you." And so he offered forgiveness to his neighbor. And his neighbor went to see his pastor after not going to church for many years. No one knows what was really said, but ironically, about 3 months after he went to see his pastor, he died quite suddenly and unexpected. Mercy and forgiveness saved literally both of these men. The one who offered forgiveness and mercy one to another. It's very interesting because the man who abused the one's daughter, he could have gone to hell if his neighbor didn't come across the road and say, "Could you forgive me?" Christ died out of love for us while we were still his enemies. And so we must be merciful and strive for it. Yes, it's difficult. We must be merciful just as our Heavenly Father is merciful. And we must, as good Christian Catholics, we must do to others as we would have them do unto us.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.